first started reading Ulysses by taking part in a James Joyce reading circle, which was facilitated by Lauren Shine, who is a person who was born and raised in Ireland, and he now teaches at Buffalo State College. After we completed our reading circle, we were asked to participate in a Bloomsday celebration at the Irish Classical Theatre in Buffalo. And he asked me to read from Nausicaa, the part about Gertie McDowell, which is what I'm going to be reading today. So I'm going to be reading from the Nausicaa chapter. And if you have the Gabler edition, it's page 291. I'm going to be reading from this edition, and this one is 355. This section is 348. The twins were now playing in the most approved brotherly fashion, till at last Master Jackie, who was really as bold as brass, there was no getting behind it, deliberately kicked the ball as hard as ever he could, down toward the seaweedy rocks. Needless to say, poor Tommy was not slow to voice his dismay, but luckily the gentleman in black, who was sitting there by himself, came gallantly to the rescue and intercepted the ball. Our two champions claimed their plaything with lusty cries, and to avoid trouble, Sissy Caffrey called to the gentleman to throw it to her, please. The gentleman aimed the ball once or twice, and then threw it up the strand towards Sissy Caffrey, but it rolled down the slope and stopped right under Gertie's skirt, near the little pool by the rock. The twins clamored again for it, and Sissy told her to kick it away and let them fight for it. So Gertie drew back her foot, but she wished their stupid ball hadn't come rolling down to her, and she gave a kick, but she missed, and Edie and Sissy laughed. If you fail, try again, Edie Boardman said. Gertie smiled assent and bit her lip. A delicate pink crept into her pretty cheek, but she was determined to let them see. So she just lifted her skirt a little, but just enough, and took good aim and gave the ball a jolly good kick, and it went ever so far, and the two twins after it down the shingle. Pure jealousy, of course. It was nothing else, to draw attention on account of the gentleman, opposite looking. She felt the warm flush, a danger signal always with Gertie McDowell, surging and flaming into her cheeks. Till then they had only exchanged glances, the most casual, but now, under the brim of her new hat, she ventured a look at him, and the face that met her gaze there in the twilight, wan and strangely drawn, seemed to her the saddest she had ever seen. Through the open window of the church, the fragrant incense was wafted, and with it the fragrant names of her who was conceived without stain of original sin. Spiritual vessel, pray for us. Honorable vessel, pray for us. Vessel of singular devotion, pray for us. Mystical rose. And careworn hearts were there, and toilers for their daily bread, and many who had erred and wandered, their eyes wet with contrition, but for all that, bright with hope, for the Reverend Father Hughes had told them what the great St. Bernard said in his famous prayer of Mary, the most pious Virgin's intercessory power, that it was not recorded in any age that those who implored her powerful protection were ever abandoned by her. The twins were now playing again right merrily, for the troubles of childhood are but as fleeting summer showers. Sissy played with baby Boardman till he crowed with glee, clapping baby hands in air. Peep, she cried, behind the hood of the pushcart, and Edie asked where was Sissy gone. And then Sissy popped up her head and cried, ah! My word, didn't the little chap enjoy that? And then she told him to say papa, baby, say papa, papa, papa. And baby did his level best to say it, for he was very intelligent for 11 months, everyone said, and big for his age, and the picture of health, a perfect little bunch of love, and he would certainly turn out to be something great, they said. Ha-ja, ja, ja, ha-ja. Sissy wiped his little mouth with the dribbling bib, and wanted him to sit up properly, and say, "Papa." But when she undid the strap, she cried out, "Holy St. Denis," that he was passing wet, until double the half blanket the other way under him. Of course, his infant majesty was most obstreperous as at such toilet formalities, and he let everyone know it. "Ha ba, ba, ha ba, ba," and two great big lovely big tears coursing down his cheeks. It was all no use soothing him with, "No, no, no, baby, no," and telling him about the gee-gee and where was the puff-puff, but Sis, always ready-witted, gave him in his mouth the teat of the sucking bottle, and the young heathen was quickly appeased. Gertie wished to goodness they would take their squalling baby home, out of that, and not get on her nerves. No hour to be out, and the little brats of twins. She gazed out towards the distant sea. It was like the paintings that man used to do on the pavement with all the colored chalks. And such a pity, too, leaving them there to be all blotted out. The evening and the clouds coming out, and the Bailey light on Hoth, and to hear the music like that, and the perfume of those incense they burned in the church, like a kind of waft. And while she gazed, her heart went pit-a-pat. Yes, it was her he was looking at, and there was meaning in his look. His eyes burned into her as though they would search her through and through, read her very soul. Wonderful eyes they were, superbly expressive, but could you trust them? People were so queer. She could see at once by his dark eyes and his pale, intellectual face that he was a foreigner. The image of the photo she had of Martin Harvey, the matinee idol, only for the mustache, which she preferred because she wasn't starstruck like Winnie Rippingham, that wanted they too to always dress the same on account of a play, but she could not see whether he had an aquiline nose or a slightly retroussé from where he was sitting. He was in deep mourning. She could see that. And the story of a haunting sorrow was written on his face. She would have given worlds to know what it was. He was looking up so intently, so still, and he saw her kick the ball. And perhaps he could see the bright steel buckles of her shoes if she swung them like that thoughtfully with toes down. She was glad that something told her to put on the transparent stockings, thinking Reggie Wiley might be out, but that was far away. Here was that of which she had so often dreamed. It was he who mattered, and there was joy on her face because she wanted him, because she felt instinctively that he was like no one else. The very heart of the girl-woman went out to him, her dream husband, because she knew on the instant it was him. If he had suffered, more sinned against than sinning, or even if he had been himself a sinner, a wicked man, she cared not. Even if he was a Protestant or a Methodist, she could convert him easily if he truly loved her. There were wounds that wanted healing with heart balm. She was a womanly woman, not like other flighty girls, unfeminine, he had known. Those cyclists showing off what they hadn't got, and she just yearned to know all, to forgive all, if she could make him fall in love with her, make him forget the memory of the past. Then mayhap he would embrace her gently, like a real man, crushing her soft body to him, and love her, his own as girly, for herself alone. A refuge of sinners, comfortress of the afflicted, ora pro nobis. Well, has it been said that whosoever prays to her with faith and constancy can never be lost or cast away. And fitly is she too a haven of refuge for the afflicted because of the 7 dolours which transpierced her own heart. Gertie could picture the whole scene in the church. The stained glass windows lighted up, the candles, the flowers, and the blue banners of the Blessed Virgin Sodality. And Father Conroy was helping Canon O'Hanlon at the altar, carrying things in and out with his eyes cast down. He looked almost a saint in his confession box. It was so quiet and clean and dark, and his hands were just like white wax, and if ever she became a Dominican nun in their white habit, perhaps he might come to the convent for the novena of St. Dominic. He told her that time when she told him about that in confession, crimsoning up to the roots of her hair for fear he could see, not to be troubled, because that was only the voice of nature, and that was no sin, because that came from the nature of woman instituted by God, he said. And that our Blessed Lady herself said to the Archangel Gabriel, "Be it done unto me according to thy word." He was so kind and holy, and often she thought, could she work a ruched tea cozy with embroidered floral design for him as a present, or a clock? But they had a clock, she noticed, on the mantelpiece, white and gold, with a canary bird that came out of a little house to tell the time, the day she went there, about the flowers for the 40 hours adoration, because it was hard to know what sort of a present to give, or perhaps an album of illuminated views of Dublin or someplace. The exasperating little brats of twins began to quarrel again, and Jackie threw the ball out toward the sea, and they both ran after it. Little monkeys common as ditch water. Someone ought to take them and give them a good hiding for themselves, to keep them in their places, the both of them. And Sissy and Edie shouted after them to come back, because they were afraid the tide might come in on them and be drowned. Jackie, Tommy, not they. What a great notion they had. So Sissy said it was the very last time she'd ever bring them out. She jumped up and called them, and she ran down the slope past them, tossing her hair behind her, which had a good enough color if there had been more of it. But with all the thingamary she was always rubbing into it, she couldn't get it to grow long because it wasn't natural, so she could just go and throw her hat at it. She ran with long, gandery strides. It was a wonder she didn't rip up her skirt at the side that was too tight on her, because there was a lot of the tomboy about Sissy Caffrey, and she was a forward piece whenever she thought she had a good opportunity to show off. And just because she was a good runner, she ran like that so that she could see all the end of her petticoat running and her skinny shanks up as far as possible. It would have served her right if she had tripped up over something accidentally, on purpose, with her high, crooked French heels on her to make her look tall, and got a fine tumble, tab blue. That would have been a very charming expose for a gentleman like that to witness. Queen of angels, queen of patriarchs, queen of prophets, of all saints, they prayed, queen of the most holy rosary. And then Father Conroy handed the thurible to Canon O'Hanlon, and he put in the incense and censed the Blessed Sacrament. And Sissy Caffrey caught the two twins, and she was itching to give them a ringing good clip on the air, but she didn't, because she thought he might be watching. But she never made a bigger mistake in all her life, because Gertie could see without looking that he never took his eyes off of her. And then Canon O'Hanlon handed the thurible back to Father Conroy and knelt down, looking up at the Blessed Sacrament, and the choir began to sing Tantum Ergo, and she just swung her foot in and out in time as the music rose and fell to the Tantumer Gosa Cramen Tomb. 3 and 11 she paid for those stockings and sparrows of George's Street on the Monday before Easter. And there wasn't a brack on them, and that was what he was looking at. Transparent, and not at her insignificant ones, that neither shape nor form, the cheek of her, because he had eyes in his head to see the difference for himself. Sissy came up along the strand with the two twins and their ball, with her hat anyhow on her to one side after her run, and she did look a streel, tugging the two kids along with the flimsy blouse she bought only a fortnight before, like a rag on her back, and a bit of her petticoat hanging like a caricature. Gertie just took off her hat for a moment to settle her hair, and a daintier head of nut-brown tresses was never seen on a girl's shoulders. A radiant little vision, in sooth almost maddening in its sweetness. You would have to travel many a long mile before you found a head of hair the like of that. She could almost see the swift answering flush of admiration in his eyes that set her tingling in every nerve. She put on her hat so that she could see from underneath the brim and swung her buckled shoe faster, for her breath caught as she caught the expression in his eyes. He was eyeing her as a snake eyes its prey. Her woman's instinct told her that she had raised the devil in him, and at the thought a burning scarlet swept from throat to brow till the lovely color of her face became a glorious rose. Thank you. Happy Bloomsday, everyone. Sláinte.